You know, we all think we know the story of Adam and Eve, but what if the biggest consequence of their choice wasn't really about life ending, but about something else? Today, let's dig into this idea of death, not as an end, but as a separation.
So let's just ask this question right up front. What if the main fallout from that famous choice wasn't about mortality? What if it was really about distance, a kind of division humanity had never, ever experienced before? When you look at it that way, man, it reframes the entire story.
So this brings us to a whole new definition. Our source here suggests that in this context, death simply means separation. It's not just about your heart stopping. It's about being pulled apart from something absolutely essential. And that single idea, it is the key to understanding everything that happens next.
Okay, so if death is separation, then the events in the garden didn't just cause one kind of it. Nope, they caused two. So let's break down what those are.
All right, so first up, you've got physical death. That's the one we're all familiar with, right? It's when the spirit separates from the body. But then there's this other one, spirit death. And our source defines that as the separation of humanity from God. Two totally different outcomes, both stemming from one single choice.
So how in the world did we get to these two separations? Well, the story starts out in a place of pure innocence, but it gets complicated and fast by an adversary who uses this timelessly clever tactic, wrapping a big lie in a little bit of truth. All right, so the scene is set with two really symbolic trees. You've got the tree of life, and then you have the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Adam and Eve are in this state of innocence. They don't really get concepts like happiness or sorrow yet, and they have exactly one rule from God. Don't eat from that second tree, or you will die.
And this is where the antagonist makes his entrance. Now, our source explains that Satan wasn't always the adversary. He was the powerful angel who rebelled because he wanted God's power for himself. So his motivation is pretty clear, right? It's to drive a wedge between humanity and God.
And here it is, the first direct challenge to God's command. Satan comes to Eve, and with just these 5 words, plants the very first seed of doubt. It's a bold, direct lie that just flies in the face of the one rule they were given. But it's not the whole story.
Because this is where the strategy gets really, really brilliant. I mean, think about it. A pure lie, that's often pretty easy to spot. But a lie that's wrapped in a little bit of truth, that is so much harder to resist. And that is exactly the tactic being used here.
So here's the breakdown. The lie was, you will not die. And he was kind of right, at least not physically, not right in that moment. But the truth was that their eyes would be opened and they would get this new knowledge of good and evil. So by mixing a spiritual lie with a literal truth, the real goal here wasn't just about the fruit. No way. It was about creating a fundamental doubt in their relationship with God.
Now, Eve's choice wasn't impulsive. Not at all. The source actually outlines this clear 3-step process. First, she saw the fruit. It looked good. Second, she wanted what it promised, wisdom. And third, she fully engaged with it. See, this wasn't some snap decision or a mistake. It was a methodical process that led to a very deliberate choice.
After the choice comes the consequence. And you know, the first consequence wasn't some lightning bolt from the sky. It was a quiet, internal shift that immediately showed up as separation.
Just like the adversary promised, their eyes were opened. They now understood good and evil. And what was their very first instinct? To hide. That simple act of hiding from God, that is the first physical sign of spirit death. That separation we've been talking about.
And then comes this question, this single pivotal question. As God is walking in the garden, he calls out to Adam. Now, on the surface, it seems like he's just asking where he is, but the real weight of this question is so much deeper. See, this wasn't a question about Adam's physical location. God wasn't asking for his GPS coordinates. It was about his relational location. He was asking, where are you now, in relation to me? What just happened to our connection? This is the moment that spirit death, the separation, is actually spoken into existence.
So after that profound question, the consequences become official. They get cemented into the human experience. And this sets up the story's ultimate, final question.
And here we see the fulfillment of both of those deaths we defined. First, they became mortal, subject to physical death. And second, they were sent out of the garden, which finalized their spirit death.
There's separation from God's immediate presence. From now on, life would be a mix of struggle and joy.
And here, in God's own words, we get this stunning confirmation of the truth in Satan's original claim. Humanity now knows good and evil, something that was once reserved for the divine. The transformation is now complete.
And all of this leaves us with one powerful, lingering question. If we're separated from our bodies by mortality, and we're separated from God by our choices, is a reunion even possible? If death is truly separation, is there a way back?